Bring the meeting to order, 7:42, Thursday, December 20th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag. Roll call, Mr. Reba.
Mr. Bonomo?
Here.
Mrs. DeCosmo?
Here.
Mr. Fume?
Here.
Mrs. Kay?
Here.
Mr. Mahalik?
Participate via phone tonight.
Mrs. Scarcella?
Here.
Mr. Szymanski?
Here.
Mr. Van Hoekelen?
Here.
And Mr. Zola?
Just announcement that there was an executive session held on December 12th, 2018 regarding personnel litigation and negotiations. Caitlin Beeler, our student representative.
Hello. I have the December activity report to present. So, senior visual arts students competed in a holiday t-shirt design competition sponsored by Frankie's Pizza. Student Luis Santos' design was chosen as the winning design. He will be awarded a $500 scholarship from Frankie's Pizza. Shirts will be printed and will be on sale directly from Frankie's. A portion of the proceeds will go to charity. Hazleton FBLA chapter recently had 141 members compete in the regional competitions. 95 of those members placed in the top 5 of their respective events. 90 members qualified to go into the state competition in her CPA in April 2019, and 30 came in first place in their respective events. Members of the HAHS National Honor Society teamed up with the Pennsylvania State Police to provide Christmas cheer for some of the district's special educational students. NHS members purchased nearly 200 gifts that were distributed by the students, the state police, and Santa. This concludes the December report.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Public comment on the board agenda items only? Nothing? Okay, can we call Robert Moore to give us the audit report? It is on the agenda today, so give us a report.
Good evening, everyone. Completed the audit of the school district financial statement year ended June 30th, 2018. And where we like to focus our comments on the page 21 of our financial statements, which shows the variance from your original budget to what the actual amounts ended up being for the year. And in the revenue, the actual amounts ended up being $146,200,000, which is a positive variance from what was budgeted by $1.5 million. The largest makeup of that difference is the increase in earned income tax revenue collection. Over the past 3 years, you've been seeing an increase in that, and it continues. So, that's a good thing, and hopefully that will continue as time goes on. On the expenditure side, the actual amounts were $149.3 million and budgeted amounts of $147.2, or a negative variance of $2 million. Two items making up the largest portion of those differences were an increase in salaries, which amounted to $1.3 million, and that was the retroactive payment for the Education Association for the teachers as part of their the negotiations with their contract. And then also your insurance costs continue to rise, and the variance was just shy of $500,000. So those two negatives just about add up to your $2 million difference in expenditures, which left the year a deficiency of your revenues, or more money spent than brought in, of around $523,000. There's some other items in there that used another $1.1 million. taking the total change in the fund balance to a decrease of $1,651,000 for the year, leaving you with an ending fund balance of $6,788,428. Those are the major highlights in the financial statement. Are there any questions on what we have presented so far? If not, just like to tell everyone we had great success completing the audit. The staff of the business office and everyone we worked with were great to us and my staff, and no issues or problems that we've noted with the audit, so it's an overall unmodified opinion. And if everyone approves the financial statements, they will be issued first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Need a motion to approve the.
Motion.
Motion by Bonomo.
Second.
Second by Mrs. DeCosmo on the question. Mr. Reba.
All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Motion to approve the treasurer's report.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo. Second by Mrs. Scarcella on the question. Mr. Reba.
All in favor of the treasurer's report, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Mr. Upplinger.
All right, thank you. On page 1, like to make a motion to, or have a motion to approve items 1 through 7.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo.
Second.
Second by Mrs. DeCosmo, items 1 through 7 on the question. Mr. Reba.
Items 1 to 7, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
On page 2, motion to approve items 8 through 22 with one motion.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo. Second by Mrs. Scarcella. Items 8 through 22 on the question. Yes, like,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the number 20, recommended board appoint Brandon Hampton, Hampton, to the position of secondary English.
question.
On the question.
Yes.
Number 19, taking the name out of it. See, it's a new position. Oh, Bobby, does that mean it's funded or it's not? Budgeted for or not budgeted? Looks like 4. There's different positions budget or budget.
Mr. Reba.
Items 8 through 22, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No on 19.
Ayes have it, noting Mr. Vola's no vote.
Okay. Upplinger.
On page 3, motion to approve items 23 through 34. with
Motion.
one motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo. Second by Mrs. Scarcella on the question.
We have another position, 23, new position, not budgeted for.
That position is, reason for that position?
The reason for the
Item
new
number
position.
23, that due to class size.
Okay, the new class that we're filling. Okay, thank you. Mr. Reba.
Items 23 through 34, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No on
Any opposed? No on 23?
23.
Upplinger.
On page 4, motion to approve items 35 through 44.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo. I'll second the motion on the question. Items 35 through 44. Mr. Reba.
Numbers 35 through 44, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I have
Any-
a question. So pending approval by Attorney Slesser, number 43, did you approve that, Mr. Slesser?
Have it.
Okay, then I'm a no on that.
No on
Make a
43?
motion to pull it. Pull it approved, not approved.
Well, I think it says approve it pending Attorney Slesser's approval, so. unless
Shouldn't
he-
they be approved before they come onto the agenda? Because we never get an update as if you approve them or not.
It's up to the board. The board's been approving agreements that way probably as long as I've been here. Typically happens is if there are legal changes necessary to the document, give those back to administration, bring them to the contract. 50% of the time agrees, 50% of the time we modify my changes until we can come to an amicable position. So I'm happy to do with whatever the board wants to do.
So really, we don't know what we're voting on then.
Actually, this agreement is to provide services to students that are outside of the district within a hospitalization environment.
And my
It's
changes
a
are never
typical-
substantive with regard to the substance of the agreements, with regard to the legal language of the document. So I don't, my review of it doesn't change the sum and substance of what you're bargaining for.
Okay, I'm still a no.
We had the vote, right?
So on items 35 through 44, Mrs. K is a no on 43. Mr. Zoll, 43?
It's 42, correct? Or is it
No, 40.
40?
43.
42
Well,
and
42
43,
and
I'm a no
43.
on.
Up on you?
42 and 43.
On page 5, if we look at item 49 first, please, I'll fill in that blank for you. Should read $5,164,340. 5164340. And on item number 52, where it says compensation plan, should read agreement. So strike compensation plan, and that should say agreement. Okay. Motion to approve items 45
Motion.
through 54.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
Second.
second by Mrs. Cosmo on the question.
On the question, 49, the recommendation for this contract, we discussed it in executive session. It's $5 million. We looked it over. My concern with it is we're committing to spending this amount of dollars. If it turns out that the projects that had the high priority are not considered, we're still going to end up changing around to spend the $5 million. I just think some of these projects could be funded at a later date in accordance with, maintenance or capital project. So on that question, I'm going to vote accordingly.
Mr. Reba.
What's this?
And one other question on 50. This is the memorandum of understanding that came through. I believe there's 2 new positions included in that memorandum as well. Is that right?
There are 2 new positions. Yes, 2 new positions.
So that's
In this budget.
4 new positions just in this agenda that weren't budgeted for, that we're adding.
What were
Bobby,
the-
I contacted you earlier in the week and asked for a list from December through now of all positions that were not part of the budget that were added. I would appreciate if we can get that, and maybe hold off on 50 until we see where we're at budget-wise before we agree to hire an additional 2 new people.
What were the positions, Mr. Krasansky?
The 2 new positions that are going to occur in this budget cycle are 2 5.5-hour office aides at the Hazelton Elementary, Middle School, and Heights Tellers.
2 5.5 hour. Mr. Reba?
So
I'm sorry.
I have another question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
And
but
what was the purpose to have the aid, I think, Krasansky, what was the purpose for the aid?
The aides, a few years back, we had 2 full-time secretaries in each of the buildings. And with the budget cuts, we were forced to, as they retired or as they resigned, we replaced them with a part-time secretary. There has been comments made to us by some of the administrators at the schools that they need help with that additional time they needed back. So in lieu of doing another full-time position and going back to where we were, and paying full-time benefits. The union did cooperate with us, offered to put in a 5.5-hour part-time age, which again avoids us from having to pay those benefits. And we actually have more coverage in the schools. We'll have 11 hours versus 7.
So it was more of a cost saving also, and plus the secretaries, there's more coverage in the schools.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
That they
Well,
need.
it's
Okay,
not a
thank you.
cost savings. If you're adding 2 people to the building, we should have thought of that then when we did our budget. We're not really saving anything. We're filling positions that we don't have money to fill. The budget was made last June. The budget was made. It was voted on. And my last count, and that's why I asked Bobby to check, there's been like 30 additional positions that were not budgeted for added to the district. That's just positions. That's not other expenses or expenditures that weren't budgeted for that went into it, which leads me to believe that our deficit is going to be in the millions. So I have a concern about this, and I would ask that we just pull 50 at this point until our next meeting in January. I don't think there's anything urgent on it until January, and wait for the budget report to come out. I mean, that we already approved 2 new positions on this agenda. There's no sense in having a budget. We might as well not approve budgets.
Well, Mr. Krasansky, maybe you can get us a list of all of those,
We've currently been working on it, yes.
and maybe a record of who voted for those throughout the year, too. The votes on those items, yeses, yeas, or nay, by each board member. That'd be great.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Mr. Reba?
On items 45
I'm
through
Oh, wait, do you?
Ms.
I'm
Ms.
sorry.
Kay had a,
It's fine.
you sure?
Yeah.
items 45 through 54, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No on
Abstain,
49 and
abstain
50.
50.
I'm a no on 50.
Mr. Zoll, you were no on.
I thought
What
there was a
number?
motion that I made a motion to remove 50 until next month, until we got a report.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you
I
did
didn't
that.
know you
I'll
had voted.
second it.
Motion to table?
Motion to table 50 until next month when we have the report on.
Okay, we
from
have a
the business
motion by
office.
Mr. Zoll, a second by Ms. Kay to table 50 until next month on the question. Mr. Reba?
The motion to table, Mr. Bonomo,
No.
Mrs. DeCosmo,
No.
Mrs. Kay,
Yes.
Mr. Mahalik,
No.
Mrs. Scarcella, Mr. Szymanski,
No.
Mr. Van Hoeklen,
Yes.
Mr. Zola,
Yes.
and Mr. Field.
No. Mr. Reba, continue with the vote.
On the original motion for items 45 through 54, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm a
Any
no on
opposed?
50.
Abstain 50.
No on 50 and 49.
So Mr.
Oh, I'm
Bonomo,
sorry. I'm a no on 49 also.
Mr. Bonomo abstained on 50, Mrs. Kay no on 49 and 50. Mr. Zola no on 49 and
And 50.
And I was a no on 50.
just number 50.
Yeah.
You know, I do have a question. So, again, when this was just brought up that we discussed this in executive session, is this really executive session material, the GISA project? Because we are spending taxpayer dollars.
That was in the beginning of the executive session before I arrived, I think. I wasn't there for the discussion, so I'm not sure exactly what was being discussed before I arrived. And I would suggest that we, if it was discussed, we can reiterate the discussion now and summarize it. Would be a good idea.
Okay. Who's going to summarize it?
Mr.
I can summarize. Basically, the handout that was provided to the board at the last committee meeting, which was in November, was the analysis that was done by Provident Energy of where we stood with the ESA project as it related to the CM3, who was the vendor who was awarded it. We narrowed down the actual items that were identified in the ESA project to a number that we're forced to live with based on a payback year of 18 years or less. So the items were identified and discussed as far as there were some questions on what particular, how we came up with the items we chose and what the next step was going forward.
And Bobby, didn't we talk about the limit to go only as high as 51 or 5.1 million?
Correct. The number that's on the agenda this evening, 5,164,340 is your max.
And Mr. Zola brought up that if we did change the scope of things when we were going to build onto the high school, if that is a possibility, and then we were going to put air conditioning on, there's a $500,000 fee in there for that very purpose, and we could pull that out, correct?
Correct. I did stress that Michael Lang of Provident Energy is working hand in hand with our architect, Harry Vedder, and they will be working to make sure that there's no overlapping of any project of any kind.
Harry Petoni.
Harry Petone, sorry. Harry
And just so
Vedder's
the
on
public
line.
doesn't get the wrong perception, Marie,
I heard janitors becoming an architect.
$500,000 would not cover, that is not the cost to air condition the high school. That, you're talking about the one unit on the auditorium.
2 units at the high
or
school.
2 units at the high school.
You
You
don't-
understand what I'm saying? We do decide to put air conditioning in high school, it's gonna be a lot more than $500,000, but then we
But
would
we
not-
are taking out the
Yeah, we would not do that
$500,000.
then. We would not do that part of the project.
So the questioning came up that just leaving the money in the pool and then maybe using it for other projects that were on the list, that's not where the savings is coming from. The savings is coming from the lighting and a few of the, maybe the chillers in that use a lot of energy. And instead of narrowing the scope down to just those projects, we're coming up with the amount that we can spend by law, and that's what we'll end up spending. And all I'm saying is, again, I think Bob, Mr. Krasansky's numbers in January on the budget are going to show that we need to watch what we're spending. Because it's going to take 18 years to pay back some of these, we'll probably be replacing some of those chillers before that 18 years is even, before they're even paid off, we'll be replacing them again. So it's,
Well, those
it's just
units we're replacing are as old as the high school, and the high school is a lot older than these.
well, if I'm not mistaken, I think they were replaced once in between since, but
Thank
that
you.
was the question, that was the discussion in the meeting.
Thank you, everyone. Zeppelinger?
On your last page, page 6, item number 55, motion to recommend board approve the following budget transfers from
Motion.
federal programs.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo. Second by Mrs. Scarcella on the question. Reba?
Number 55, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Motion to approve item number 56.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo.
Bobby,
Do we have a
I'm sure
second?
inquiring, I'll second it.
Second by Mr.
Inquiring
Smash.
minds will want to know, what does B mean, a credit refund? Could you explain that?
Yes, letter B, which is the Schrader Group, we did receive a check back from them in the amount of $131,698.76. What that was, we had to pay Schrader Group up front after they did the specs and put out the bid based on an estimate of what they thought the project was gonna come in at. As you all know, the bids came in very well with pricing, almost less than half of their estimate, hence the reason for them giving us the credit back.
Thank you. Mr. Reba?
56, A, B, and C, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No on C.
No one see.
No
No
one
on
see.
C.
So we have Mr. Bonomo's a no on C, Mrs. K, Mrs. DeCosmo, and Mr. Zola. Any other no votes? Motion passes.
Go from there.
Do have an item to add to the agenda, item number 57. To recommend the board direct administration to draft and execute an addendum to the Kelly Services contract establishing an administrative substitute at a rate of $300 per
Motion.
Before we get into it, it's a new item, so does anyone from the public wish to comment on that?
Sure, I'll repeat it. Recommend board direct the administration to draft and execute an addendum to the Kelly Services contract establishing an administrative substitute at a rate of $300 per day. So basically what we're doing is looking at a principal or an assistant principal substitute.
Mr. Bonomo, you made a motion?
Yes, I made a motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
Second.
second by Mrs. DeCosmo on the question. Mr. Reba?
On the new motion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I am.
Mr. Szymanski's no vote. Any other no votes? Ayes have it, motion passes.
That's it for the agenda at this time. Anyone from the audience wish to be heard?
You're worrying about 2 5.5-hour positions.
Yep.
And now you are going to pay $300 per placement. When the girls in those 2 schools that you mentioned are struggling daily to keep up with their jobs, let alone the efficiency. And it's what you're going to be paying is astronomical. It's bi-weekly. That doesn't even pay. That is not even their paycheck at a 5.5-hour position. And you're going to challenge that MOU until next month.
I don't challenge that. I agree with you. I worked in the school district, and I see how hard those secretaries work. And at one point, they were going to be revisited, and they were supposed to be full-time positions. However, I guess they decided to put in the 5.5 hours, which they said seemed to work better. And I understand, and they're not making that much money for the amount of work that they do, and I get that. I really do.
I agree with you said also, Ms. Falbell, but and the motion for the MOU did pass.
It did pass.
It did.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is
I understand.
It's a bigger picture. It's not just those 2 positions. It's the 4 positions tonight, over 30 positions over the last few months that are not budgeted for. In your home, if you have a budget and you overspend your budget by hundreds of thousands of dollars, or in a private home, thousands of dollars, it leads to failure at some point. We have to make up for that money. Don't take it personal. It wasn't meant for those. It wasn't meant. There's a bigger picture here, and I thought I did a better job of explaining that. The bigger picture is we can't just keep approving items that aren't budgeted for. I mean, and we do it every meeting, and we still have 6 months before our next budget. And I'm only saying that, and I voted on some of those positions. But in an executive session over the last few weeks, it came up that there's going to be a hefty deficit. That's what was brought up. So with that information, I'm starting to process, how do you deal with it? Do we wait until June or July and deal with it when the budget comes up? Or do we try to deal with it between now and then?
I'm just concerned
Yep.
about the frustration of the girls that are working the shortage, and it becomes very frustrating.
Right. I agree.
I think it's very frustrating. The bottom line, in my opinion, is all the students that are coming into our school district, and we're trying to service them one way or another. The office help, the teachers, cleaning staff, it's a big problem that we're going to have to deal with as we move forward, but we can't allow these offices to run amok because it's not their fault that they're getting more students every day assigned to their building. I mean, what are we going to do?
Right.
And
Thank
I
you.
think in the administrative position, you know, on the same token, we have the administration union coming saying, you know, they need help in certain buildings. You know, when people leave the buildings for any number of reasons, and it's left without someone attending it. I know Dr. Patty has tried to fulfill a lot of those needs, and I know our superintendent has tried to fill those needs. But at times, they can't because they're so busy. So there are times that buildings need an administrator, and it was thought, and if it doesn't turn out financially, which I think it will, by putting on a substitute administrator, just like a substitute teacher, they're able to go in and fill that gap for the day. Not necessarily going to be 5 days a week. You know, it may be a day here or there when our administrators have to be out of the building, and Mr. Patty or Brian can't make, you know, be there. So it's coverage. It's an insurance policy to make sure that an administrator is available in those buildings. That's what it is. They're not going to be working 5 days a week, you know. From what Dr. Patty brings back to us, and Doctor, if I'm speaking out of turn, every building's in their own midst of having to deal with issues in their buildings and running their buildings, and you know, it's tough to pull someone, and they've been trying. I know they've been switching people back and forth. You know, currently we have one administrator that's been on extended leave, which really opened up a gap for us. And with that gap, that's just trying to figure out how to do it where it makes sense economically, and yet cover the facility and make sure that our students have that support from that principal or administrator.
Thank you. Thank you. Joe?
Joe Stanavich, citizen of Hazelton and this school district. Unless you do what I do every year, I just completed a year. I've been to almost every school district area this year, and I'll be in school district areas in other towns throughout the state, from New Jersey area, meaning the Poconos, to Carbon County, all the counties. There's no one competes with Hazelton. You guys try, and you don't have a blank check. That's what people don't understand. You're doing the best you can with what you got to work with, is what I'm trying to get to. And unless you go like I do, I'll be doing it again pretty soon, going to different towns. 20 years I spent with Bruce Live, videotaped every game that the Hazelton area school district played throughout Pennsylvania. I was in Carlisle one time at a game when Billy Owens didn't know how to speak or write his name. Bruce asked me to get an autograph for his son. He was in the gym, and he never went to class. Now, granted, he became a pro, and there's others that became pros. But they don't realize every student here that's a student athlete, I've seen them go right in the locker room, Bruce Lyman and Mike Joseph. You're a student first, an athlete later. Not that they don't want them, and they struggle trying to get all these kids for 20 years to get them college grads. Fortunately, my two sons played, and it was Bruce's way or no way, or you sat the bench. My one son, all he had to do was go back and apologize. He said, no way. And I think the respect is first. And I think people don't understand what goes on in school unless you've been in this school. I was a volunteer when Dr. Carr started something called Hawk Press. She teaches in King's College. She just said it the other day. Hawk Press, when Dr. Antonelli was the principal, you had to get to the next grade, you had to write your own book. So as a parent and volunteers, PTA, they would say, my sister Sue, that was the start of their book. By the time the year got over, they wrote their own book, they read their own book, they wrote their own book, and the parents couldn't get over how good Dr. Antonelli. One day, I was there with Dr. Antonelli. He said to me, "Thank you, Joe." Why he said thank you? Another time, because I'm running out of time. But thank you for doing your job the best you can.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank
People
you.
don't understand unless you come here. They don't and pick up one of these. They don't understand what you're going through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience? I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. Oh, I'm sorry.
My name is Melinda Nipper. I'm a parent. I'm a stakeholder in this community. I own my own home, so I'm paying school taxes. So you're welcome.
As everybody else does.
Sorry?
I said as everybody else does too.
Well, not everybody
Okay.
pays school taxes. It's a district.
Right.
So I'm here because I was up in the building facilities meeting, and I had a question. One of the teachers actually stated that all of the ninth grade, the proposal was for all of the ninth grade kids with an IEP would be going to the career center. And if I'm not incorrect, that actually kind of goes against both federal and state regs for least restrictive environment. Like these blanket statements and these unilateral placement statements are detrimental to the district and what we should be doing for least restrictive environment. So I wanted to just have some clarification because nothing has been made public to the strategic plan of what is going to happen with these special education students. Because obviously all placement decisions are a team decision. You can't, put them into a specific class or a specific place without, obviously duly doing it. It can't be done just because of identification or because they're on an IEP. So I'd just like a little bit of clarification on that, please.
And I think it's very important to point out that we don't unilaterally place our students within this district. Our students are supported by the team, supported by our teachers, supported by our parents. The parents are at the table, the administrators are at the table, the teachers are at the table. And in some instances, 14 or over, our students are at the table. So there's no unilateral placement of any student with special needs in any one area of the district. And yes, it is a team decision. We're working on a comprehensive school, for lack of a better term, to better educate the students that are in different placements outside of our district. I think it would be, and I think our team here, meaning the team of the board, our district employees would also agree with me in stating that we'd better serve our students if they were here with us, benefiting from the curriculum that we provide to our other students, and which is most beneficial to the students across
so
the
do you
HASD.
believe though that statement that was made by that teacher upstairs?
Well, first there were no teachers in the.
Oh well, whoever it was that was sitting next to Debbie Nuzzi that made that statement, I'm not sure who that was.
I don't believe that you took the statement correctly. The statement wasn't made that all the students that with IEPs were going to be placed in the Career Center.
Okay. Maybe. I mean, that was the way it was worded, so I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Anyone else? Wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. A motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Todd.